Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Welcome to Vlogmas Continued. I don't know what day this is gonna be, but today I am coming at you with my 2022 reading survey. This is kind of like a yearly wrap up at a glance. Just some interesting superlative type questions to wrap up my year of 2022 reading. All of the questions that I'm going to be answering I found in the description of two videos, one from Books and Lala and one from Gabby Reads. So since they are pretty much the queens of booktube, I figured this was the good one to film. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the reading survey and find out a little bit about my 2022 reading year. The first question is, how many books did you read and did you meet a goal if you set one? On Storygraph, at this point in the year, it is December 5th. So I still have about 25 days to go. But at this point, I have read 193 books this year. I'm hoping to get to 200 by the end of the year, but the goal that I set for myself every single year is 100 books. I think 100 books is kind of crazy to read in a year. I think very, very few people do that. So I want to kind of keep myself grounded, not keep my goals too lofty, even though part of my job now is reading. I think having a goal that is still crazy but reasonable for me is something that I'm always going to do. The next question is, what was your most read genre in 2022? And for me, according to Storygraph, that was thrillers. Out of the 193 books that I've read so far, 92 of them have been thrillers. So almost half of all of my reading is thriller books. Obviously, if you found yourself here, you are probably a thriller lover too. The next question is, what are the longest and shortest books that you were able to complete this year? My shortest book is I Am Not Your Final Girl by Claire C. Holland, and this is a little horror-themed feminist poetry collection. It clocks in at 91 pages. And the longest book that I read in 2022 is The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson. This one clocks in at 512 pages. It is a literary horror about generational trauma in a post-pandemic world. And I gave both of those books 4 stars, or 4.5. I can't quite remember, but I really enjoyed both of those. The next question is probably the most difficult question to answer on this list, because it is, what is your favorite book of 2022 that was published in 2022? I narrowed it down to 2. I was in between One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle and Blood Sugar by Sasha Rothschild, and I just had to go with Blood Sugar. I'm sorry, this book is just everything to me. It is so good. If you haven't heard me rave about it yet, we are following a female killer, but she doesn't premeditate any of her murders. She just kind of helps fate along when she sees a shitty person in a perilous situation. And now she is on trial for the murder of her husband, although ironically, that is the one person that has died around her that she has not had a hand in killing. It's really, really character driven, so we fall in love with our main character as we understand the nuances of her life and her morality, and we gain empathy for someone who is really a flawed person like all of us. I think this book just has a lot to say about women especially, and feminism. There's also a great diabetes rep in here. It's set in Miami. Our main character is a therapist, just like myself. She has a special needs cat. Like, come on. What is not to love about this book? I just thought it was perfect. It was perfect. It was perfect for me. Okay, nothing's gonna top this that's published in this year. It's just not gonna happen. The next question is, what is your favorite debut of 2022? And for this one, I'm going with Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This one is very divisive, I know that, but I actually ended up on the side of really, really loving this book. I cried. It was an auto 5-star, just like as soon as I closed the book, I knew it was a 5-star read. and I cannot believe that this is a debut. It reads like the author has been writing romance forever. It fit the summer vibe. It was emotional. Oh my God, it was just so great to me. I was really slumping with romance this year. I did not read as much as I usually would in a year, so the fact that this one really stood out, it says something, because I was not enjoying a ton of romance in 2022. This one is a second chance childhood friends to lovers romance, where these two people were childhood friends. They kind of tried their hand at dating. They were a thing for a while. They had this huge falling out, and like 10 or 15 years later, they end up reconnecting and kind of hashing things out. It's a dual timeline, when they were young and falling in love, and when they're adults now in present day, falling in love all over again. The next question is, what was your favorite book not published in this year? So a backlist title that you read and enjoyed. And for me, this was so easy. One Bloody Thing After Another by Joey Como. This book is so phenomenal. It is a tiny little horror novella, but it packs a big punch. It is darkly funny and so weird. Okay, if you are a weird horror lover, this is a must read. It is just so quintessential without being pretentious. And that's what I love about it so much, is that it brings me the weird, kind of speculative, gruesome, darkly hilarious stuff that I love without any of that pretentious language. Now, don't get me wrong, it's written beautifully still. It just carries this genuineness and this lightness that I love so much. Maybe it's because we're following a young girl as our main character, as she kind of is figuring out her queer identity because she has a crush on her female best friend. So she's figuring that out through this kind of horrific metaphor, and a lot of other weird shit goes down. There's some speculative horror in here, there's some gore, but what really hooked me in this book was our main character. The next two are T. Okay, the next two are T. The first one is, which one actually lived up to the hype? For me, this one got a lot of hype, and I went in really unsure, but Pen Pal lived up to every single 5-star review I saw from all of my friends. I was so happy this ended up working out for me. I did a Patreon reading vlog for Pen Pal, and it is so crazy. It was one of the craziest vlogs I've ever filmed. I had so much fun with it. It was emotional, it was twisty, it was dark. It literally ripped my heart out and horrified me at the same exact time. This book just carries so much heavy emotion. It's kind of like a coming of age story told in reverse, where this guy is a full-grown man and he is figuring out how he ended up the way that he did by going through all of these memories of growing up and putting together the pieces of the trauma that shaped him. It is super dark and there are tons of trigger warnings, so know that before going in. Obviously, it's horror. You should look up trigger warnings anyway. But yeah, this one definitely lived up to the hype. Super shocking. The next one is a book that did not live up to the hype, and this was an easy one for me as well. That is gonna be Womb by Duncan Ralston. And y'all, I heard so much buzz about this book in the horror community. Y'all know me. I love dark shit. I love extreme horror. I love splatterpunk, anything crazy that just goes to that extra level. And that's everything that I had heard about Womb. But when I read it, it came across as just a little cringe to me. I hate when you can hear an author's voice in the writing and it's distracting from the actual plot and characters in the book. Like, I want to know what the characters are thinking and feeling, not the author. And if those two things align and it doesn't distract, then that's one thing. But when I feel like I'm hearing this like edgelord, incel, horror boy kind of voice behind a female character that's being written, that's when I truly have an issue. I understand how shocking this book was. I agree, it was shocking. The gore and horror elements were definitely there for me, and I did enjoy those parts of the book. However, this did not live up to the hype because I cannot believe that people are just ignoring the problematic elements in this book. This is a white author writing white characters who say the N-word in their dialogue. That is just, to me, completely disrespectful and unnecessary. So no, Womb did not live up to the hype, and I will not be recommending it. Next up is the book that felt like the biggest accomplishment when you finished reading. And I have a funny answer and a serious answer for this question. The funny answer is The Ruins by Scott Smith. Okay, this is a chunk, and you might be thinking, okay, it's a big book. Hailey does not read big books. Maybe that's why it's an accomplishment. No, this book tried me, okay? This book tried me. I threw up while reading this book, and I still pushed through to the end and finished because I loved it. Okay, this is a 5-star book. It was so good. It is extreme horror light, I would say. If you're wanting to ease into extreme horror, this is a good one to start with. It's about a group of kids who go to Mexico for spring break. They end up in this survival scenario. There's a little bit of like speculative, fantastical elements, and the horror is really effective. Some of the descriptions though, they just got me. They were so gross. Body horror for me is the one thing that like puts me on edge. And I'm not talking about like gory body horror, okay? Blood, guts, I can do that. But like body function horror, I can't deal with it. And there was a lot of that in here, as you can imagine, in a survival scenario. I felt so accomplished when I had finished this book after literally throwing up and being sick to my stomach. So there's that. And I'm pretty sure that reading experience will live in infamy. I'm literally reminded of it during every stream. Someone's like, hey, are you gonna throw up again? LOL. Or like, don't eat nuggets while you're reading extreme horror, Hailey, because I threw up Chick-fil-A nuggets while I was reading The Ruins. But my serious answer for this question is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This is the first book that I have ever reread during my time on BookTube. So that was a big accomplishment for me to go back to the book that really skyrocketed my channel, and I base a lot of my like brand on this book. This is easily my favorite book of all time, and it was just a very validating, accomplishing experience to go back and have the same feelings as I did the first time around. The next question is your favorite character of 2022. And mine's gotta be Ruby from Blood Sugar. This main character is just unforgettable to me. She feels like such a real and nuanced person. I am just obsessed with her. I absolutely love Ruby. I want to meet her. I think we would be good friends. And yeah, this question was so easy to answer, not even a question. And then of course I have to tell you my least favorite character, which was also a very easy choice. Another one of my favorite thrillers published in 2022 is The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. And easily my least favorite character is in this book. Ashley Winstead really wants you to hate this character, and she does an amazing job at it. I'm not going to give away who it is because obviously no spoilers. I think you should go into this book semi-blind. Obviously check on trigger warnings because it is a dark book. You can pretty much trust if I'm recommending it. It's a dark book. We've been over this. But yeah, I don't want to give anything away. But the evil mastermind character in this book, for me, least favorite character. Oh my God, I hate him. I want him to burn and die. I'm so scared of him. I love what happened at the end because wow, that man literally needed to be, okay. No spoilers, but yeah, wow. The visceral feminine rage that I felt for one of the male characters in this book is truly unimaginable. The next question is, what is the most shocking moment or shocking book that you've read this year? And that has to be Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Triana. I absolutely loved this book. Another easy 5-star. It's that weird extreme gore with like speculative commentary vibes that I love. Like this is a recipe for a book that I will love. And there were 2 moments in this book that absolutely shocked the socks off of me. I would say the bigger twist is the one that you would kind of think would be the most shocking for me. But the one that shocked me the most is when the plot really kicked into high gear, and that extreme gore came into the picture when I was least expecting it. There's a moment when our main character has to go get something, retrieve an object, and the play on words that's used there, it just didn't click in my brain. So when I saw what was unfolding, it was so shocking for me. I literally wanted to launch the book across the room. It was such a horrifying, like, chills up my spine feeling. I just cannot speak enough to how effective that scene was and that horror was. It was so shocking and so good. I highly, highly recommend this if you like psychological horror that goes to a really dark place and you can handle gore as well. The next question is, what is your favorite couple or OTP from a book that you've read this year? And as I said, I haven't read a lot of romance, but there's definitely some romance on my best of the year list. One of those is The Sinner's Duet by Sophie Lark, and that is definitely my favorite couple that I've read about this year in 2022. Our main character is Mara, and she falls in love with a serial killer, and it's a dark romance that goes from there. They are two little serial killing artists who are just like deep and dark and hot, and it is my bisexual fantasy to spend a night with that couple. I am absolutely obsessed with this duet. It's on Kindle Unlimited. If you have Kindle Unlimited, run, go and read it now. I think I've convinced a lot of my friends to read this duet, and no one has come back to me with any complaints. So if you're a fan of dark romance, I know you will love this one. The next question is, what is the best written book that you've read this year? And for me, that's gonna have to be Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. This book was written about such a difficult topic with such amazing warmth and empathy and understanding. And it was so refreshing to see this type of mental health rep in general popular fiction. We are following a 17-year-old going on 18-year-old main character who has pedophilic disorder. And I actually did one of my final theses in one of my classes in grad school on pedophilic disorder. That's obviously one of the hardest disorders to work with as a therapist. So it really takes a lot of intentionality and positive regard for the client, and you can just feel all of that therapeutic presence in this book. It was so nice to see other readers as well who aren't therapists really resonating with this book and feeling the moral dilemma. It really gave all of you guys a chance to experience what a lot of us therapists experience with clients, which is like that pull of really not aligning with someone personally, but having to show up for them professionally and access a place of empathy and understanding. This book was just so well written and took a lot of my feelings and thoughts about being a mental health professional and just put them on the page. The most difficult clients I've had really resonate with this book, and I just cannot believe that someone else on this earth understands, and it's great to see other people understanding as well. The next question is, what is the book that you pushed the most people to pick up in 2022? And I think this is no question. We all know the answer. And that is the For the Sake of series by Judith Sonnet. This is extreme horror, and I kind of pitch it as a mix between Squid Game from Netflix and Pretty Girls, my favorite book of all time, / Survivor, one of my other favorite books of all time. I think I counted at one point 30 or 40 people read this along during the week of Hailey, my readathon that took place in October. And I'm so happy to support a queer female horror author. That just made me really happy that so many of you guys picked up this book. It's still one that I really love. And Miss Judith, you're welcome for the referrals. The next question is favorite cover of the year. And that was so easy. Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier. This book is gorgeous. It just captures everything. She is the moment. Like, The font, the color palette, the headless people, the opulence, this color font, the fucking spine. Oh my God, look at this. Without the freaking dust jacket, it's still gorgeous. She is perfect. And actually, my favorite cover of 2021 was also a release from this same author. So she's just killing the game with her covers. This is definitely one of my favorites of the year. Ironically, her book from last year was my least favorite book of the year. But regardless, I love her covers. The next question asks about my favorite book adaptation, and that has got to be Luckiest Girl Alive on Netflix. I remember reading this book when it first came out in like 2016, 2017, and being so deeply impacted by it. I pictured it like a movie in my head, and I recommended it to all of my friends in high school and college. So to see it come to life on the screen really had a deep impact on me. It made me cry, actually. I thought it was done really well. I know a lot of people have like mixed feelings on this adaptation, but I loved it. I think if you enjoyed the book, you will definitely enjoy the film on Netflix as well. Mila Kunis is a dream, and she looks like a dream the entire movie. And the guy from American Horror Story plays her husband, and it's just like, oh, yes, this makes sense with my fantasy, very much so. So I highly recommend checking it out, but definitely read the book first, because I will say, no matter how good an adaptation is, to me, the book is always better. The next question is, what book made you cry the most this year? Pretty Girls. My reread of Pretty Girls. I cried after the prologue. I literally sat down and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna reread my favorite book. Let's go. Hee hee hee. Read the prologue and I was sobbing. I literally cried off all my mascara. It was so embarrassing. And no one was even around to see it. It was just me and my dogs. And I'm like, y'all, do not look at me. I cannot believe this book has me such a mess. And I cried about 6 different points throughout the book as well. Like, there was just such high emotion because I already felt so deeply for these characters that on a reread, I would just feel it like rising in my throat, and all of a sudden I would just slam the book down and sob because it's just so, so good. And the end is heartbreaking. Oh my God, these emotions are visceral. If you can handle a darker thriller, you've got to read it. Like, I don't think you're allowed to watch my channel if you haven't read this book. Obviously, if you have trigger warnings, that's okay. Hi, welcome. You're welcome here. But if you can handle this and you haven't yet, go do it. And the next question asks what book made me laugh the most this year. And that's another one I've already spoken about as well. One bloody thing after another. I literally laughed out loud reading this book. I read it in a vlog, and I was like at a little cafe outside eating my lunch and reading this book, and I literally looked like a crazy person. People were walking by on the street watching me go as I read a book with a demonic cat on it. Like, people probably thought I was insane, but I was having a good old time reading this book. My favorite kind of humor is dark humor, so this just really worked for me. The next question asks, what are your new favorite authors that you've discovered in 2022? And I have 2 answers for this. One that I discovered towards the beginning of the year, and one that I discovered towards the end. One of my favorites this year has been Lucinda Berry. I absolutely love her writing. I love that she's a therapist and she uses her mental health knowledge to bring positive mental health rep to the thriller genre. It is so possible to be a thriller reader and love dark, gruesome stuff, but come at it from an empathetic lens, and I think she captures that perfectly. She also writes her characters with a lot of nuance and writes rich people drama really, really well, and y'all know I love that. And toward the end of the year, in the fall and winter, I discovered Laurel Hightower, and something about her writing just really, really clicks with me. She writes short, digestible horror with a little bit of speculative elements in it, and it just works. I fly through her books. And Below, the one that I read from her in October, is an all-time favorite horror book. I'm obsessed with it. If you're looking for a quick, fast-paced, exciting, snowy winter horror read, this one is perfect. The next question is kind of one we've already talked about. It's favorite reread of the year. This is the only book that I reread this year, so it has to be my answer, but I'm happy to talk about Pretty Girls again. I will talk about her all day long. And the last question in the 2022 reading survey is, what is the best nonfiction that I read this year? I'm going to go ahead and give that to American Kingpin by Nick Bilton. I know when a book sends me down a Reddit rabbit hole that it really made an impact on me, and it's really difficult for me to have my attention captured by nonfiction, but this literally reads like a thriller. So I was in from the word go. I became obsessed with the dark web after this. If you didn't know, this is the story of the founder and creator of the Silk Road on the dark web, which is basically like Amazon for illegal things. I became obsessed with not only the Silk Road, not only this man's life, but also the dark web. I watched like 8 different documentaries, okay? It was really just a moment for me over the summer where I was like a dark web girl for a little bit. And it's all because of this book. I absolutely loved it, and I highly recommend it, even if you're not a typical nonfiction reader. So that is going to be it for the 2022 reading survey. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Let me know down below if you liked any of my favorites from this year that I talked about in this video, or if you want to give any of them a try. Like this video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week, and I will see you in my next one.